people spend their entire lives in pursuit of wealth, status, and power, but Lara Croft was lucky enough to be born into them. However, despite attending the best schools and living in her own mansion, she was missing one crucial thing: adventure.
Man, rich people are always looking for some crazy way to help keep themselves entertained. But if you have a lot of money and you take a lot of trips, it's good odds that one of those trips is bound to go horribly wrong.
And guess what? It did!
Before she was even old enough to order a drink, a crash landing left her stranded in desolation. She had to learn for herself how to adapt and survive for over a week before returning to civilization as a whole new lady.
In whatever Tomb Raider timeline you're looking at, whether it's on an island or the Himalayas, Lara's destined to this life-changing fate.
I'm never getting on a plane with her.
Surprisingly, Lara's experience left her far from traumatized. Instead, she was inspired, hooked by the thrill of perilous adventure. So she struck out on her own, seeking lost treasure across the globe to make a name for herself.
But Lara's no fool, so first she made sure she'd be ready for anything. She tracked down the best teachers she could find to learn her the ways of stealth, survival, and martial arts.
She became proficient in numerous types of firearms, and her martial art of choice appears very reminiscent to kickboxing. She can even fight while blindfolded.
So she's basically Batman, who treasure hunts with guns. Speaking of which, Lara is famous for her trademark dual Heckler and Koch pistols. And I'm not talking about the things under her sweater, but she's also skilled with shotguns, assault rifles, submachine guns, even grenades. And she uses them to take down everything from armed thugs to T-Rexes.
Lara is also skilled with a competition compound bow, perfect for stealth kills.
And she's got enough trick arrows to make Green Arrow proud. She's got fire arrows, poison arrows, explosive tipped arrows, and even rope arrows for crossing gaps or grappling things. And while her climbing axe is supposed to be used for scaling up cliffs, you can imagine what the thing does to a human skull. Oh wait, you don't have to. Watch. Lovely.
Gruesome murder aside, Lara's extensive training paid off in big ways. She's discovered the legendary blade Excalibur, the Philosopher's Stone, the Ark of the Covenant, Thor's hammer Mjolnir, and even Bigfoot, whom she also promptly killed.
Suck it, Sasquatch. She survived dinosaurs, the Kraken, a Chinese dragon, and she even found the long-lost Led Zeppelin song Stairway to Heaven.
What? No, she found a literal stairway to heaven.
Really? Holy shit!
For a 132-pound woman, she's surprisingly strong. She's held up a heavy gate for 36 straight seconds while drowning. She also regularly pushes around enormous boulders, like the giant blocks in the Pyramid of Giza. This makes her easily strong enough to, say, punch a man through a wooden beam.
Lara's also a crack shot. She can precisely tag multiple targets in less than a second, even if they're button-sized bolts or kunai flying through the air.
She's skilled enough to infiltrate and escape Area 51. She's tenacious enough to take a bullet in the heat of battle and keep fighting. And she's tough enough to dive off a 250-foot cliff into water with no injury whatsoever. The highest documented dive ever recorded is 193 feet. But unlike Lara, this driver underwent weeks of preparation and still broke his collarbone.
Hell, this girl can survive almost anything. When she was younger, she got impaled by a rusty metal spike and was still able to complete an entire adventure while in constant pain.
She wasn't even able to properly treat it. She had to cauterize it with a burning arrow tip.
Damn, that's hardcore. I think I found my next ex-wife. And then there was that one time she threw her climbing axe at a helicopter and it just exploded.
Yeah, the only logical explanation being she threw the axe into the chopper's air intake, shredded its internals, which caused a spark that reached its gas tank.
She made the helicopter explode with nothing but an axe. That girl's got one hell of an arm.
I think we can all agree Lara is a badass, but she thinks so too, and can get a bit reckless.
If she gets too full of it, she could always find herself at the wrong end of a tree branch, crushed by boulders, mauled by wolves, shot in the head, stabbed through the face, all sorts of horrific fatal mistakes.
Even knowing that, the risk doesn't keep her from any of her bewildering adventures.
Don't you think you've seen enough?
In 1867, Scrooge McDuck was born to a poor family in Glasgow, Scotland. He grew up a relatively normal duckling until his 10th birthday.
Scrooge's father took him to see the remains of the old McDuck clan castle. See, their family wasn't always super poor, and Scrooge was inspired by the sight of their former glory. So the next day, he got a job and earned his first money ever. A dime.
Problem was, it was an American dime, and Scrooge was in Scotland. Naturally feeling pretty cheated, Scrooge swore he'd build his fortune by being, I quote, tougher than the toughies and sharper than the sharpies.
So he hopped over to America to start his quest for wealth. And judging by his money vault today, where he literally swims in gold, I'd say he did a pretty effing good job.
No obstacle was too difficult to keep him from fortune. By my estimations, his entire net worth today rests around $300 quadrillion.
Rich as he is, he's got to defend his treasure trove somehow. So this wealthy waterfowl's got more guns than I do. Not to mention the trusty cannons he has hidden around his manor. Haha, nothing like some old-fashioned artillery for home defense.
Scrooge also has a number of unorthodox high-tech firearms.
Or as normal people call them, laser guns. My favorite is the one that can shoot through solid steel titanium. It's called the Burglar Stunner, but I'm pretty sure that'll do a hell of a lot more than stun you.
Well, my favorite would be Scrooge's neutral-friction and anti-inertia rays. By removing a target's natural friction and inertia, these guns can turn a foe so slippery they can't grip anything, or take away all momentum from that foe's movement and weight. Without friction, a person will slide miles upon miles with no hope of stopping themselves. Without inertia, a cannonball will have even less impact than falling leaves, though it is important to note that these guns do not affect personal gravity.
Yeah, science and stuff. Though if I were him, I'd prefer the feel of one of his rifles or swords.
Or his signature sidearm, his trusty cane.
What's so special about a dusty old cane, you ask? Well, just look at the old quack go! Not every duck can turn their cane into both a club and a pogo stick.
Even when he's unarmed, Scrooge's thirst for wealth has pushed his body past many preconceived limits. He possesses incredible strength, speed, and durability.
Not to mention, the dude's got some serious huevos. One time when he was stuck in the savannah, he walked right up to a lion, beat it in a roaring match, and then just rode it all the way to town.
He's also a surprisingly skilled marksman.
Like some sort of gun-toting Mr. Miyagi, he can shoot flies out of the air with perfect precision.
And he's no slouch with a blade. Apparently, Buffalo Bill taught him how to knife fight in, Injun style. And now's a great time to remind you that Scrooge is pretty old. It was a different time.
Racism aside, it takes a lot to put this mighty mallard down. He survived the Titanic sinking, being frozen solid in the Yukon, fighting hordes of wild animals, and taking a cannon shot to the face before being dragged through a minefield. He's even survived a trip to the literal center of the Earth, which, if you've forgotten, is pretty much super lava.
That's putting it mildly. The Earth's core is estimated to be well over 9,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
More than hot enough to cook your goose.
He's outrun a cheetah, which can reach 75 miles per hour. He's stopped a charging water buffalo, which can weigh up to 2,600 pounds.
And did you ever hear that legend where George Washington threw a silver dollar across the Potomac River? Well, Scrooge can do that too. And he even caught the coin on the other side. Because Scrooge isn't gonna waste a single dollar.
Seems pretty impressive, but Scrooge has some massively problematic flaws. Least of all is his age. He's 150 years old. That won't do him any favors in a fight.
And why can't he fly? I mean, he's a duck with his own private plane, and he has human teeth, and they really should just hire a poultry scientist at Disney. Oh, I'll send my resume.
Well, more importantly would be his overpowering greed. He can often lose sight of his goals or explode into an uncontrollable rage if someone threatens his wealth.
He is pretty selfish and has a one-track mind. I don't know if the uncontrollable rage part, though, is such a bad thing.
Certainly not in some situations, like the time Soapy Slick tried to rip Scrooge off, steal his property, and humiliate him by chaining him to a steamboat and making fun of his letters from home, including one informing Scrooge of his mother's passing.
That's more than enough to piss Scrooge off, so much that he literally tore the entire boat apart with his bare hands, or wings. Holy damn, that's some real foul strength.
Just goes to show that nothing can stand between Scrooge and his wealth.
I don't know which was wilder in those days, the wolves or me.